in the beginning of the program, we talked about how eventually we're going to be doing or offering, this shared lucid dreaming experience, and opening up that mastermind experience.
Right.
And so that basically entails that we can have these experiences with other people in the
Mhm.
dream environment where they're really there with us, right? And
Right.
but most of the time the people that we see in our dreams are just projections of our subconscious, right? So
Right.
and I know that we've had a few questions from people, and I've had this question as well, and so I was hoping you could talk a little bit about it. First of all, like, if we see you in a dream, is that you, or is that a projection of our subconscious?
uh, well, I would say 99.9% of the time it's a projection of your self-conscious, because I don't usually go where I'm not invited, usually. And so the other thing is, when we lucid dream, I mean, once you get in there and you're conscious that you're dreaming, I mean, everything in there, not just the people that are in there or the creatures that are in there, but the environment is yours too. It all represents you, right? They're all just aspects of yourself being projected in front of you, just like this is. But you have a lot more, because it's in the sort of the substructure of you, and sort of the manufacturing plant, where it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of it. It's like it's the you know Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, where it's like all your dreams come true, right? It's like everything that's in there is being produced by your mental state, it's being produced by your emotions, it's being produced by, all your desires and whatever. It's just that once you're conscious, you can sort of rein that stuff in and sort of put it in at least in the beginning, somewhat of an order where you're awake enough to kind of engage it on a regular, in a normal state, right? So, but yeah, so everything in there is an aspect of you. So if you don't, that's the only reason that you can change it. I mean, it's you. So it's like saying, if you don't want a blue sky, but you'd rather be there at night, well, then all of a sudden there's a night sky, and stars are out, right? Full moon over the whatever. So uh the only reason that you can do that is because it's just part of you, and you decide to turn it on and off, or switch it up, make it into something else. I mean, just like, I mean, you don't have to be a master visualizer to say, oh, picture a daytime blue sky with a little white cloud in it. Oh, okay, good, easy. It took a second, right? And then say, think about a night sky. Oh, black sky with lots of little stars and maybe a moon over there, or maybe a tree line that I can see. It doesn't, it's nothing for us to think about that stuff. I mean, it's not like, oh, visualize this mandala with these colors, and it's not that complex, right? It's stuff that we're so familiar with. And so that's why, it's a little easier to change that stuff up if you have that desire when you're in your dream. But the reason that you can do it is because it's all aspects of you. And so, it's, uh, it'll switch it up pretty quickly when you do that. But when it comes back to, like, who are you seeing in your dreams, and are they, you know other aspects of the one, or are they you, aspects of yourself being presented to you in a certain guise to sort of emphasize a point, right? So and this is something that happens, I mean, I'm sure you've told people too, I mean, this happens thousands of times, you know, already for me on a regular basis, right? So people, and it's not just me, it's any teacher, that teaches any kind of stuff like this. People see them in their dreams. And so, but it's not me, it's an aspect of yourself that's presenting itself as me. And so to emphasize the point, it's like, what's the engagement on that level? That's something to figure out, right? That's sort of that idea. It may have my mannerisms and actions like me, but let me give you a good distinction. Like, if it actually is me, I would contact you somehow the next day and say, hey, you know, just want to let you know that, I was, we were in that dream together last night, and here's what we did, and da, 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 give some very, very concrete details so that you could verify, that was me, and that you were indeed in a lucid dream, and I was there, engaging you in some way. So, excuse me. But if it's not, or, there's always the chance that you could stumble on me. I mean, with, in really like sleeping, and if that's the case, I'll be in the same state that everybody is when they're sleeping. They're just, they're an aspect that's there, but in a regular dream, and just sort of like not making any sense, and sort of, mumbling to myself, or out of it, or engaged in the dream in a way that would be incongruent, at least as far as you're concerned. And that could just be me asleep, and so, uh, but those are the other, that's really all the options that are there. So
Right.
it's like, yeah. um so I mean, I've heard, the gamut, from me attacking people in their dreams, to me doing other things with people in their dreams, to whatever. Okay. And I'm like, sorry to inform you that I'm neither attacking you or loving you or anything else in your dreams. Okay. So it's really, it's like anything else. It'd be like, any close associate that you have, that, um, you know, there, what do you know about that person, or what's the engagement on what level with that person? And, your part of yourself is coming through as an aspect in the dream that way. And, for what reason? To give you some advice about something that you're dealing with, from the point of view of of that aspect, right? So if it's me, it's like to maybe open your eyes to other possibilities of what's going on, or something like that, depending on how you view me. And that'll be slightly different for everybody. So, but that's a good thing to keep in mind with any of this stuff, right? It's like, um, I, there's, I've seen plenty of, how do I put this in a good way? I don't know. There's no good way to say it. I've seen plenty of kind of teachers that would take this opportunity to boost themselves up and say, "Oh yes, I was in your dream. Oh, I was just giving you a special message." And da, 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 it's like, it's all bullshit. For the most part, it's like, if somebody was really doing that, if somebody said that to me, the very first thing I would do would be to ask them for details without me telling them anything. I mean, concrete details about what happened in the dream. So, and if they got it wrong, then I know. I mean, it's like, there's nothing wrong. It's an old school. I don't know. In other cultures, you are absolute. There's no disrespect taken if you challenge what some teacher, or somebody who's putting themselves up as a teacher, says. There just isn't. It's like, if they say, "Oh, I did this," or, "This is what happened in your dreams," or however that scenario would go. If you said, what happened, without giving them any clues, and they couldn't do it, I mean, there's no, at that point that whatever else they're doing, it's not true. So, or it's suspect anyway, right? And there are plenty of teachers over here that do that, and I think it's just a cheap charlatan trick, So it's for the, the weak-minded and the gullible. So don't go there, right? It's like, you have your own mind, and nobody's breaking into it. And if they do, or if something just, I mean, I've not heard of it, but if something were to just trip into your dreamscape, so to speak. You know, if I were just to sort of like, I don't know, show up there and it was really me, and I was like, oh crap, I'm in Faith's dream. What the hell? You know, it's like, oh, Faith, hey, how you doing? Okay, so I'm gonna go do my thing, unless you have a question for me or whatever's going on, and we might have some engagement, we might not, and then, but when I came out, I would be calling you or texting you or getting a hold of you in some fashion and saying, just want to let you know, we absolutely had a joint lucid dream last night, and here's the details that before I left, I said, oh, I'm going to go and do my thing over here. So, but you asked me this question and I told you this, and just to confirm for you. So you're not questioning in your head the whole time, like, oh God, was it him? Was not him? So anybody who can't do that, they're just bullshitting you. So, and I know it's possible because I've done it and I've had it done to me a number of times. So, and I've had the opposite done too. And it's like, and anytime that happens, I just walk away because it's just, I can't trust the person, once they sort of go down that road. So, so that's my take on that. I mean, it's a good thing to bring up because people do it. We have a lot of association now. We've had a lot of contact for over a year now. So it's like, it's perfectly natural to have a dream with an aspect of me in it, or Dustin in it, or even some of the other, classmates or whatever. It's perfectly normal. So just like, we would have dreams, again, the more content that we fill in our minds during the day of anything, right? It's bound to enter into our dreams if you hit that threshold where it's going to filter into your dreams, right? So of course, there's no reason why that wouldn't happen. It's not an oddity, but you just, I'm letting you know ahead of time that I don't do that as a rule. So, yeah, if people, when we do that joint lucid dream thing, that will be a very organized situation. It's not going to be haphazard, right? It's like,
Right.
here's the night, here's the date, here's the timing. Let's get in there and try this, and so it won't be anything that's just sort of like fly by the seat of your pants, so.
Great.
Yeah.
Diane, you had a question?
Yeah, I got a question. It's about when I was listening the last coaching session, week 3 and 4, you were giving an example about with something blue, I don't remember, and it's basically I'm a little confused with why you do the review of the dreams. If you have and when and what the dream sign, if you have the dream sign, well, do you need to do the dream review? And because you were talking about something blue, that if you see a blue car, well, you ask yourself, am I lucid or not? But if you have the dream sign, you use the dream sign for that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep.
It's a little jumble in my head.
Sure. Okay. Let's try it. Let's try and smooth it out a bit. So they can be combined together, but let's separate them out. So the dream sign is something that you found, let's say, in all of your dreams, there's some kind of, or every other dream you have, there's a blue car in that dream. And so that would be a dream sign for you because it's something that's recurring. And so when you do like the lucid dream meditation, right? So when you do that, at the point where you review a dream and you're replaying the dream in your mind during that part of the meditation, at the point where you, like a halfway point or something, when you are ready to switch into that and turn lucid, you would picture that blue car. And so as soon as you have the blue car, then it's like that's your dream sign. So you're coordinating those two things together. And so, and then you would become lucid, and then you would change that part of the dream going forward, right? Because now you're in control, right? You're awake and aware in your dream, and it's almost like a shaman, like a shamanic journey type of thing, where that type of meditation where you just let your mind go and it goes and wanders and does something. And so it's the transition point that we're trying to instill in our minds, as though it was something that was so automatic, from doing the meditation so many times, that not only is it a dream sign that we actually have in our dreams, but we're not recognizing yet. The lucid dream meditation is a way to bring ourselves to an event where we had a regular dream, and then there's a dream sign, and then I'm becoming lucid, and then I'm going off and doing something else. I'm telling my subconscious what I want to happen tonight, or what I want to happen the next time I'm dreaming. That I'll be dreaming some normal dream. My subconscious actually knows when I'm observing that, or I'm in that regular dream, and then all of a sudden it'll make a blue car go by because it's trying to give you a stimulus to wake you up. And that's the dream sign, right? So if we practice that in a training session, like, the lucid dream meditation, it just becomes an automatic part of the pattern. And so the subconscious will take that and try to replay it over and over again. Gives you more opportunities to wake up. And so you may just, there's the blue car again, and you just keep going off in your normal dream. And so, but then when you wake up and you write it down, you're going to go, oh, the blue car, it was there. And so I didn't wake up. But you'll go back and you'll train, do the lucid dream meditation and do it correctly again. And so, you keep pushing the same agenda over and over again until it happens. The other part of that exercise is basically prospective memory. So I'm prospecting, I'm throwing it forward instead of a memory that's from behind me. It's sort of like, I think of it kind of like a shopping list that I don't write down. Like Nina will ask me, pick up cream on the way home. And I don't write it down. I'll try to keep it in my head, and through the course of the day, I go, when I leave the office, I have to stop at the store and pick up cream. And so I repeat that, right? So it's like, basically, when this happens, I'm going to do this action. And so when I finish work, I go to the store and I pick up cream. And I run that sequence through the day, right? Oh, remember to pick up cream after work. Oh, remember to pick up cream after work. And so this exercise in prospective memory is the same type of thing, but we change what it is, and I change mine every day, right? I think that's one of the things that that keeps it fresh, even though it's the same exercise, just in changing what it is. Like today, I used, and I usually use 3 things, sometimes 4 if I'm feeling really up, right? So, but I would do I think today I did, when I see a beautiful woman with blonde hair, I'll check to see if I'm dreaming. That was number 1. Number 2 was, when I see a dog, I'll check to see if I'm dreaming. The other one was, when I see a train, or when I have contact with a train, I'll check to see if I'm dreaming. And so those were my 3 for today. Those were literally my 3 today, right? And I had 2 new patients. Both were beautiful blonde women. And so as soon as I didn't know them, as soon as they walked in, I was like, oh, and it's like, and I remembered, I was like, oh, okay. So I checked the clock, because I have a clock right next to the desk. So it's like, oh, I checked the clock, the time, and then I looked away and I said, am I dreaming? And then I looked back to the clock again, because of course in a dream the time would change, right? it wouldn't be the same time. So that's how I did my check for that one. I did that for both of them, actually. One was in the morning, one was in the afternoon. And then I didn't have any experience with a dog until I came home with my own dog. So I checked that, and so it's like, okay, I wasn't really thinking that one through too well, but I thought, well, sometimes I'll, and for me, it's like almost any aspect of what I name, I'll do. Like, so I didn't see a train today, but the train came by at some point today and I heard the train whistle. And when I heard the train whistle come through town, it was like that immediately, like, oh, this is the train, immediately in my mind. And that's what we're trying to get, is trying to get the mind to reference something and then immediately go into, like kind of perk up and go into your, check your reality check, right? Check your state and see. And so as soon as I heard the whistle, I looked at my watch, saw the time, looked away. Am I dreaming? Looked back at my watch, same time. Good, I'm not dreaming. Okay, so, I mean, you can use any reality check you like, but depending on, I like to switch it up just because, I don't usually wear a watch in my dreams. Thankfully, I don't like them very much, but also, like, reading words on a page, the letters will get jumbled. If you look away and look back, it'll say something else. So, that's another good way to do it. I mean, obviously all the, the physical things that you can check when you're in a dream, like trying to jump and float, right? And so those types of things, well, that's not so easy in the office, but especially if the patient's right there. It's like, oh, he's happy, he's jumping. So, but that's the idea. So it's so that prospective memory of using your memory in a forward motion, like when this happens, and you set it up ahead of time. I set it up before I ever leave the house. When this happens, then I'll check to see if I'm dreaming. So I'll wake up and check to see if I'm dreaming. So it's really about, if this trigger happens, I I said, I mean, I felt like I felt in my body, in my head, like when I heard that train whistle, like I perked up, it's like, oh, there's my trigger. Okay. So, and then I checked, right? So it's like, that's the kind of stuff. And I change it every day just so that it doesn't get too monotonous. And it's exercise for my brain, right? It's exercise for my memory, my perspective memory, forward reaching. So because then when we go to sleep at night, we're using that same perspective memory, right? So I state what it is. The next time I'm dreaming, I'll recognize I'm dreaming and I'll become lucid. So now you either have, a dream sign that will wake you up, or some event in the dream that would wake you up, or or just that cue, that mental cue. And you really are like, anticipating that you're going to do that, like the next time I'm dreaming, I'll recognize I'm dreaming. And then in that recognition, I'll become lucid. So, I mean, that's, it's implied there, but you can say that last line if you want. And so that's that same idea. I'm pushing it forward and expecting it, because if you can do that enough in the waking day, when you go to say that at night, it's just one more cue, and that's gonna have that effect. It's gonna be very effective for you. I use that one all the time. It works really well. It's very simple.
Excuse me, Brian, this is Wendy. Can I jump in here a minute?
Yeah, sure.
The dream signs, can they change slightly?
Oh,
like,
sure.
I dream a lot about water, and I dream about whether it's a river, an ocean, a pool. Mm-hmm. And then lately I dreamt about, and it was very obvious, about this dustpan. And I couldn't figure out what the hell is with this dustpan. And the next time I dreamt, it was a shovel. And then the next time I dreamt, it was some kind of scoop for horse feed or something like that. Oh, yeah, so it can change a little?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And I would definitely, I mean, when you get those like that, I would, you know, you might even use those at night, right? So it's like the next, you know, I mean, you have more, you know, because you dream every night, you'll have more opportunities to wake up in the dream, to become lucid in the dream, if you use just recognizing that you're dreaming as the trigger. But if you want, you could use that same exact thing for, you know, prospective memory and say, okay, tonight I'll dream, and when you know, when I see water or experience water, or I experience a scoop or a shovel, I will, you know, I'll wake up. I mean, I won't wake up. That's gotta watch the wording there. But it's like, but you know, I'll become lucid. And
Lucid.
so
Okay.
I'll realize that I'm dreaming, and I'll become lucid. You know, again, those two are pretty much the same thing, because if you realize you're dreaming, well, then you're going to be lucid, right? So, but
Yeah.
you can put that extra one in for emphasis. But yeah, dream signs change all the time, all the time. And
Okay, great.
you start collecting. You kind of collect them after a while. You know, it's like, I mean, you'll sort of, you know, you'll sort of settle on the ones. Like for me, trains are always a big one. Like I don't know why I love trains. I mean, I don't collect trains or anything like that, but I loved riding on trains, and I've always been fascinated by trains. I like that mode of transportation for whatever reason. So you know, from the early days of me doing this, trains have always been a dream sign for me that immediately send me into a lucid state. So
Okay.
so that's one that's constant, but I've had others over the years, and they switch from one thing to the next.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Diane, did that answer that question pretty good?
Yeah. To clarify, because I was confused with what you can use in the day to set the night, and what you can do just before night to get.
Yes.
Yeah, there was bungee in my head anyway. But coming back to the dream sign, one of my experience was when last week, couple of weeks ago, I had my dream sign. Well, I recognized it because years ago when I was practicing, the same one came. So I said, oh my God, okay, let's go with it. But then I tried, and then nothing else came, and it was mainly actually it was nightmare and stuff like that, which I don't really have. So I don't know. So I guess that's why I was confused about the dream sign. So I'm just gonna keep asking and go from there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, you know, it's like, you know, reviewing in your dreams. Sometimes it can even be a situation, right? It doesn't have to be a physical object. I mean, sometimes you know, people will have frustrating dreams, and they'll have them, you know, let's say out of 7 days a week, they'll have 3 frustrating dreams, right? It's like, okay, so, you know, that's stuff they're bringing into their subconscious, is trying to solve those problems during, you know, of their daily existence, right? But it's the nature of it. You know, the frustration is the theme, right? For, you know, 3 out of 7 days, that's a lot. And so I would, you know, if it were me, I'd be using that, you know, like, you know, anytime that I've had, like, you know, stuff going on where I really had to deal with a lot of stuff during the day that wasn't pleasant, and you know, that might go on for weeks, right? And if that was the case, you know, I'd start to see that my dreams were trying to turn that over and give me advice or information during that time. And so I started using that type of dream, whether it's frustration or anger or whatever it is. You know, the next time I'm frustrated in my dream, I'll recognize that I'm dreaming, right? So it becomes you know, even a situation becomes a dream sign. There was a time when I was dreaming about weddings all the time for some reason. And, you know, it was a very strange time in my life. And so I used weddings, that situation as a dream sign. So it really just depends. They do change, but usually when it becomes a pattern, or I notice a pattern from my regular dreams and writing them down, well, that, you know, that becomes a dream sign. Again, you can contrive your own dream sign. That's no problem as well. You know, you can definitely do that. But either way, you want to, you know, use it in some way that's going to trigger you becoming lucid in the dream, right? Because all the dream sign does is give you a trigger, right? It's sort of saying like, hey, Diane, you know, it's like, here I am, the blue car, you know, this is where you get lucid. You know, that's all it is. So.
But does it diminish, like, let's say if I use the dream sign that I have, and then I say during the day, if I see, well, let's say it was a blue box, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so now whenever I see a blue box during the daytime, I'll ask myself, am I lucid or not? I'm gonna check and all that.
Yep.
Would I diminish the effect of the dream sign in the night? No. Okay.
No.
It's all.
No, it all works together. It all works together. So now you'll just, you know, you'll have others. So it's like, you know, now for me, that perspective memory that we train during the day is literally training me to project out, when this happens, I'll do this. When I leave work, I'll go to the store and pick up cream. When I see a blue car, I'll do a reality check. They all sort of are triggers to cause me to become lucid. And so,
Okay.
and the more that I do that during the day, so it could be, you know, doesn't mean that if you do it with a blue box that you're going to see a blue box at night, right? It's literally just the training exercise that tells you when, you know, you've picked a target for the day, whether it's a dog barking, a train, a beautiful person, or whatever, you know, and then when I have that trigger, whatever it is, if I see it during the day or I experience it in the day somehow, that will spur me to say, oh, I should check to see if I'm dreaming. And so it's literally just that, you know, and then when you go, you know, because when you train that with those specific words or those, you know, that phrasing, when you go to sleep at night and then you say, the next time I'm dreaming, I'll recognize I'm dreaming and I'll be lucid. So it's like you're doing the same thing. You're holding that same pattern into the night. And since you've done it, you know, the better you get at it during the day, the better it's going to be at night. Your mind is going to be the same because your conscious mind is starting to get relaxed and tired and starting to kind of go offline a little bit. The subconscious is starting to come up a little bit. So it's like, as you're giving yourself this command, as you're falling asleep, then, you know, it's very likely that it's going to take that command and say like, oh, you know, oh, Diane's dreaming, you know, okay. You know, it's like, hey, you know, recognize that you're dreaming. You'll go, oh my gosh, I'm dreaming. You know, it's like there was no dream sign. There was nothing else. It was just like you recognized you were dreaming. And that just says, you know, you've done that exercise enough that it actually followed you into the dream. Yeah. It's just carrying through.
Yeah, okay. I think I get the principle now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem. What else, Dustin?
So we had a question. It says, I hope, let's see. It says, I hope this wasn't talked about before in the lucid dreaming videos, but I've always been curious. I dream of houses, architecture, sometimes beautiful, sometimes squalid, sometimes former houses, sometimes just vivid backgrounds. Any thoughts?
Well, it depends again on your correspondence with the house. I mean, for me, and you could use this if you want, but if you do, then, you know, you want to keep it that. So, I mean, houses and buildings always represent the body to me, you know, so it's, did I just squelch or something? No?
No, I think you're good.
I'm good. Okay. So you know, any kind of buildings like that just represent a body, you know, for me, you know, usually my own, obviously, because it's my dream. So, and how is it represented? just gives me some clues, right? The type of architecture, or especially if I'm, I'll get those types of dreams for myself when I'm working on either new physical routines, right? Or if I need to switch up a physical routine, right, and do something a little different, cross train or whatever, or if I'm doing new either supplements or foods or changing my diet, anything like that, because it all refers to the body, right? So for me, so I don't know if that helps or not, but usually structures represent structure, right? So and I always think of the body as being the vessel that holds my mind, and so, or anchors my mind. So structure in buildings pretty much relates to that for me, if I'm looking at that. So
Can I ask a follow-up?
yeah, sure.
So this has always been, I think this is where I've had my first lucid experiences. Because for years after we sold our farm, I would have dreams of the farm and dreams of the changes that the person who bought it had made, obviously made up, because the person who bought it didn't do any of these things. And sometimes it was something I didn't like. But then there was a time when I said, look, if you're going to tour around this beautiful place that someone's made beautiful changes to, let's go see and see what you can see. And are there changes that you enjoyed? And instead of being a guilt producing, oh, I screwed up and we didn't have, great success there.
Right.
I was able to go and see all these, beautiful buildings and the nice horses and, all that stuff.
Right.
And I somehow remember saying, well, let's go see. And so I built these castles in the air out of this beautiful place.
Right.
And as a teenager, I can remember this beautiful house in a California canyon, with 3-story high windows and, cascading greenery growing outside the windows. And that was the view, and water falling and all that stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I'm wondering, is that possible that that's a lucid situation where I'm saying, this is a familiar place, let's make it more beautiful and enjoy the dream?
Sure. I mean, yeah. Or, if you, again, if it is a symbol of something, what would it be a symbol of, And so once you correlate that, then it's like, yeah, right. And so for me, coming from my earlier context, it's like, like some of the biblical references, like, I've prepared a room for you in my Father's house with, that has infinite number of rooms, right? And so, but that structure to me always referred to, not just a territory or an event, but also, I got to know it after a while. Like if I wasn't feeling well, and this is one of those caveats that doesn't come up unless we start talking about this stuff, right? It's like, just as a note for all of you people that are on here and listening to this, it's like one of the best times to try to get lucid is when you're sick, because your body's beaten down, it's just trying to recover. You don't have a lot of willpower. You get to sleep, you phase in and out of sleep really easily. You're not super coherent and you're tired, right? Because your body's trying to recover. So I'm telling you, some of the easiest times I've slipped into lucid dreams, and some of the times that I've been fooled that I thought I was awake when I was dreaming, has been when I was sick, and so, but I remember the first time that I had one of these building or house dreams when I was ill, and it wasn't anything serious, but it was just like, flu or a cold or whatever it was. And I remember coming to my house, and my house had the windows were kind of canted and falling out, and it was all things that wasn't really happening in my house, but and I thought, wow, because I remember standing there and thinking, am I supposed to think somebody's broken into my house? Because it kind of had that look to it, and it was dark, and it was, like there was sort of a light on, but it wasn't very bright, and all of these things. And then I started going like, hey, wait a second, this is my house. This is my, but this is, this is where I live. I mean, so I started thinking, well, the best symbolism for that, I mean, this is my body. And right now I'm not feeling very well. So, what can I do to help this out? And so I started repairing the house. I started putting it back into the right order. And so as I did that, started putting the windows back in and making them right, and cleaning up, turning on the lights, cleaning up. I turned the night, because it was sort of dusky nighttime, not very nice. And then I made it daytime. And so it was bright and I could see the house. And the more clearly I could see it, the better it got. And it was all cleaned up. And by the time I left and got back, and when I came back, I felt fantastic. I felt great. So that was one of those situations where I first started, looking into the scope of healing within those lucid dreams, and it sort of gave me that first sort of kick into that territory. So,
all right. So another follow-up then. You bring up when you have a patient, you're doing a lot of work. There's a lot of drainage, and at least 50% of the time they report back they had really vivid dreams.
Of course. Yeah. So, and
taking out the garbage.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. I mean, it's like, again, and certain times of the year, like this time of the year in the springtime, or right in the transition of spring, is always fraught with, crazy, wild, vivid dreams for most people. I mean, it's like, this is the time when I'll get the straight-laced bankers that come in and tell me, man, my dreams have been so crazy lately. I'm like up 5 times a night with, kooky dreams and all over the place and vivid and bright and parties and, just all this crazy stuff that they usually, it's just very placid for them, or, relatively neutral. And I find that with, for the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'll have that probably, I get that, right from almost the equinox through the next 3 or 4 weeks in transition. Sometimes with certain people, if they're a little more sensitive, that might start a week or 2 ahead of that. But usually it's within that 4 to 6 week period. People really, in the spring, more than any other season, transition is seems to be a more extended dream type thing. But it makes sense, right? Because we're kind of, when we think about it, with the cycles of the seasons, I mean, we're coming out of the winter where we're in a deep sleep, we're in Delta, and now it's sort of, we're moving back up into consciousness, we're moving back up into a wakeful, and of course, the trees are starting to draw sap and everything's starting to come back alive. It's starting to bud. It's starting to do these things. So there's a lot of energy that's just like crazy right now. It's like all trying to burst out of the earth. So that affects us. And, we have that points because, it's like we're in Delta or Theta, and then we're getting these little bursts of Beta. And that's where that REM sleep comes in. And so, those are the times when we really get lucid, or we have an opportunity to get lucid. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. A lot of times we look at nature and it's like we're not as divorced from it as we think we are for our modern society. It's like, it's one of the things that confuses people the most, because they think these things are coming out of the blue, and they're not. It's like, you can change the technology, but humans aren't changing that quickly. And so we're still sort of married to, thankfully, the environment. So as these changes occur in nature, we can see them mimicked in ourselves in some way, shape, or form. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Yeah, great.
And a follow-up question to that would be from Alan and Faith. They were saying that they've been learning about autophagy, and they were wondering if you believe that lucid dreaming practice may also stimulate autophagy. And it may be good to define what that is for people who may not be familiar, I would think.
Well, it's the process, a lot of it is the process of, I think, what most people would consider detoxing for the most part, right? But on a cellular level, right? It's where your body's own process is cleaning up the debris in your body. So, and there's a lot of cellular processes that go through that. So, and does lucid dreaming, stimulate that? I think it does, to some degree, but I think it would stimulate anything, but it'll stimulate it more when it's directed that way. So it's all about being conscious. So does it have some effect there by itself? Just dreaming vividly that way? I don't know. Maybe it might. But for me, it's all about control. So when I get in there, and if I'm going in with that idea and trying to stimulate that even more, or go through that even more, then yeah, you can represent it symbolically and do that, just like I did with repairing the house, right? In this case, you might think that there's messes on the floor everywhere, right? And so you're in your house, and so now you've got to go around and clean those up, right? And you get out whatever materials you need to do that, and you go through the process, right? It's sort of like a more advanced version of what we did when we cleaned our closets, right? Or what we did when we cleaned the studio, right? It's like, you're representing it symbolically as something, even though you're doing the actual physical work. And I guess physical work isn't exactly accurate if you're in a lucid dream, but you know what I mean? Like actually going through and doing it. It's just in there, there's very much less resistance to it. So, when you do it and you say, this is, these cells that need, this is that waste that's produced that I need to clean up, my body needs to clean up and get rid of. And so you actually are doing that. And because it's represented in that way, it actually is having that process is almost on a one-to-one level. So that's the way I think of it. So, and that can be enhanced even more. So, I mean, try burning when you have the ability to stay there for a length of time, you're going to see, like during doing the burning meditation in a lucid dream, it's unbelievable, right? It's like, it's extremely cleansing. And, and again, you're transferring much more of that back to yourself than you can do here for the most part, until you get really, really efficient at it. So, because there's just less to deal with, right? It's all in your subconscious. You're in there too, and you're activating all these systems. And remember, your subconscious talks in symbolism. So when you're in there and working on that symbolic level as well, you're having a profound effect. It's just that there's no resistance to it. The only resistance is you being able to stabilize and be there. But other than that, I mean, that's why I think it's just an ideal situation to be in for any kind of healing, as well as many other situations. I feel like there's just, I haven't explored all of these things, to the extent that they could be. There's just so much that could be looked into and experimented with. And so I think it's ripe for that.
Nice. Yeah, go ahead, Diane.
It's not about lucid dream. It's about Kinji. A question about Kinji.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I've been doing the Kinji, and I'm at the level of having the sign on the forehead.
Okay.
And, the question is when can I stop it or not? Because you said, like, we do 3 rep, 7 rep, 9 rep, but if you get the peak at the 3 rep, 7 rep, you could stop and move on. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the peak for me is not very clear. It's just a little peak, but yeah, I get what I get. So, yeah. And then I realized, looking back, the last 2 times, 9 rep was totally flat. So I thought, oh, well, maybe I could have moved on. But my dilemma that I'm trying to finish what I start, and
Yes, yes.
so okay, so when I decide, okay, I'm not too sure, did I get the peak? So maybe I'll do the nine reps, 7 days. But after the third day, I realized, well, it seems like pretty flat. Maybe I won't get anything.
Yeah.
So I decided, oh, maybe I should stop it. But now I said, no, I said I was going to do it 7 days. Maybe I should stick to it. So that's what I probably.
Yeah, I mean,
best to finish the 7.
yeah,
See,
and
it's a little example, but for me, it's
yeah, it's a much bigger,
you
it's a
understand?
much bigger thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So yeah, so I mean, in your case, I would definitely follow through with it, just to establish who's boss, between the will,
okay.
with the will. I would do that, and sacrifice it. You might find that once you make that resolve, that things start to peak again. It's funny how that works, really. It's like, maybe it's just your conscious mind keeping it flat so that you'll give up sooner. And so there are plenty of things that I've done, like where I got my like like a process was a certain process that I was going through morning and night for 42 days, along with all these other things, like I was only eating vegetarian diet. I was only like I gave up a bunch of no coffee, no alcohol, just all kinds of dumb stuff. And so but it was the way it was structured, and I agreed to it, right? So it's like I did that. And the first time I did it, it was about, I don't know, I think it was about 37 days when I broke through and I got my sign or whatever, and I thought, oh, okay, but I had planned to do it for the 42 days. So I followed through the 42 days, even though it was still good, but it was like, I knew that I'd already gotten my, big epiphany. So that was it. And so, and it's funny because then the next time I did it was maybe 2-3 years later. And I did the same, it was the same ritual, same ceremony, morning and night, no this, no that, did that. And, but I got my, big cataclysm at like, it was really early. It was like, I don't know, maybe like, like 22 days or something. And then I thought, oh God, it's like, I'm going to do this for another 20 days and no meat and no coffee and no alcohol. And it was like, I was starting to go like, well, I already got it. Maybe that means I'm getting better. So I can just stop it now. But, and I thought, well, I'll do the next day and that'll be my last day. And that's kind of what I thought. Right. And so I did that. And when I went in that night with that attitude, like, oh, okay, I felt good, because I'm like, oh, it's the last day. Tomorrow I get to eat, blah, 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 real food. And so, but in that time when I went in, I actually had a visitation when I went in there, and it was, and it wasn't so pleasant, and it was almost like, it was on the level of a lucid dream. It was like visionary, but on the level of a lucid dream. And I thought I fell asleep. I thought I fell asleep and went into a lucid dream, but I was in my space. And, and at that time, and I started to engage what was there, and the engagement was, it was symbolic, but it wasn't so pleasant. And so when I came out, I was like, nope, I'm going to finish to the 42 days, because I took it as a sign that I wouldn't, that it was, if it was an aspect of me, and I never really figured it out from that point of view, because it didn't come back. Obviously it didn't happen again, because I finished the 42 days. So, but initially I couldn't figure out, did I fall asleep and fall into a lucid dream? And just for that, because it was not very long if that was the case. And did I come right back out of it, sort of shocked out of it? Or was it really just this, was it some kind of visionary experience and I didn't really sleep? I've never really had a clear answer about that. But either way, I took it to the same thing, was that, I think it was more, if I had to guess, it was an aspect of my will that was saying, like, don't you dare break this now that you've, set this up and you've already gotten, what you came for. Don't cheap out at the end. It's like, even if it's looked at as a, paying, paying the rest of your debt, because you got your thing early, so, and so I followed through with that, and everything worked out, and it was fine, and it was good. But I haven't had something like that since, because now it's like, no matter what I set up ahead of time, it's like, I do it no matter what it is. If I set it up at 9 days and I extend and I want to go farther, then I can go more, but I won't do it in reverse. I won't cut it short, even if I get what I got early. I follow through with that. I just feel like it's a way to make sure that you're never breaking your will, so, and it'll carry through. So it'll be interesting to see. My prediction is going to be that if you continue with the 9 days, that you're, or the 9 breaths for the other days that you need to do it, that when you go in to do it, it's going to start to rise. That's going to start to peak. Yeah.
And so, also, I did the sign with the circle and the dot, which is the sun sign. And I was very surprised of I thought it would be like out sun, but it was like I was almost fell asleep. I was going in, and it's just like, okay, come on, okay,
yeah, it's in. It's in. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because I was thinking of the sun, okay, then I'll be more aware of what's out, but no, I was not.
Yeah, because it projects the sun inside,
Okay.
So that's the thing. It's like it's bringing, it's like like speaks to like, right? So it's like, in order for me to perceive the emanations of the sun, I have to become the sun. Otherwise, we're not going to be on the same level. It's always going to look like a globe in the sky to me with yellow rays coming down. If I want to see what the sun sees, I need to become the sun to have that perceptual state.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. Thank you.
It'll be interesting.
I'll finish.
It'll be interesting. I want to know what happens.
I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. So I just want to share this, just because Diane, that was great that you brought that up about the kinjas. And for anybody that hasn't gotten to that stage of how to see energy yet, that's from part 5, and that's specifically going through those breathing and hand configurations with the diagrams that stimulate and tone each one of the energy centers. And Diane, you're talking about that stage where you're drawing these diagrams on your forehead at the level of your third eye and breathing the energy from the diagram back in through that symbol into the center of your head. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure we covered that, so it was clear for anybody listening in that maybe hadn't gotten to that stage what you're talking about. So,
yep,
cool. All right. So if we don't have any other questions, which I'm just gonna put out there, does anybody have any other questions for tonight? Okay. So if that's the case, then I just want to maybe talk a little bit before we jump off about, Brian, you and I were having a conversation the other night about how lucid dreaming is like, you likened it to defragmenting your hard drive on a computer. And I thought that was really interesting because, you know, through our conversation, I got a much better understanding of like what was the purpose of these scenes and situations that we act out, and how we begin to utilize dreaming to overcome challenges or manifest things in our life by like going in with a question like, what is it that's holding me back about this in this situation? Or what is it that I need to look at or understand or transform to transition my life into, you know, where I want it to be or to achieve this goal? And then like acting out these kind of sacred dramas to basically reorganize your subconscious mind to bring yourself into alignment with those things that you want. And so I was wondering if maybe we could just like kind of talk about that a little bit more and kind of explore that idea.
Sure. I mean, so the way that I always think of, you know, regular dreams is sort of like, again, one of these, if you remember this, I mean, I don't even, does it even happen anymore, Dustin, with the defragging and all of that stuff with the, I mean, we don't have a lot of hard drives like that anymore, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like you can do it on command, but I think like if you have a newer Mac, I think that they do it like behind the scenes on a regular basis. So,
Okay.
and it's just that whole thing of like keeping your you know, the files on your hard drive from being spread out in these crazy ways so that
Right.
bogs
So
everything
it's
down, right?
bogs everything down, makes it slower, right? So I usually think of that. So as I recall, and I'm not a computer person, but I remember that being a thing. Like, you know, people would start to experience slowdowns on their computer, and then it would come up, and they'd sort of get this little message, and it'd say, you know, it's time to defrag your, you know, your hard drive. And you know, and the way a person, an IT person back in the day told me about it was sort of like, you know, your hard drive is a disk that it gets, you know, this information gets put on, and you know, but as it gets put on, it just puts it in a certain area, whatever's next, right? And so if you were just to run that hard drive, it would be all these little blips of stuff in different places, all, you know, different things all over the place. And so every now and then defragging would take all the information from a certain area and sort of clump it all together. And so that way, you know, it only had to move in a very a small terrain, and it made the computer run faster. And so it grouped it intelligently together. And so, and I think of this, you know, when, you know, we have regular dreams, it's sort of like a hard drive that's all fragmented, right? It's like, because, I mean, we take it for granted that, you know, oh, there's crazy stuff going on and we're engaged in it, and, you know, we don't think anything of it, that, you know, I've used a whole bunch of ridiculous scenarios with Dustin, you know, but it was like basically like, you know, you know, that we're all fishing in the parking lot, you know, and nobody really thinks anything of it, and people actually pulling fish out of the parking lot, and you know, you don't think anything of it, and you know, it's all these crazy things. And while we're in a regular dream, you know, we wake up and we go, wow, that was a crazy dream. But in the dream, we don't think anything of it, right? So it's just sort of like we go along with it. We do whatever and do all this crazy stuff. When we're lucid, it's more like, you know, we're actually in that environment, but because we're lucid, we're defragged at that point. So it becomes much more, everything becomes in context, and there may be crazy stuff going on, but you're going, that's crazy stuff. What does that symbolize? You know, or this is this, and you sort of reorganize yourself while you're in there. And so the information becomes much more clear, much more available to you. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the main reasons that we get in there and do this work, because, you know, like, you know, people spend a lot of time, like, let's say, and I might have brought this up before, so if I did, just stop me. But like, think about the self-improvement industry, right? All the big guys, from like Tony Robbins down to whoever, all these guys are doing this, and they're doing really nice things. They're doing good work. They're helping a lot of people. And, but whether you're in one of those programs or whether you're in even a lot of psychological programs, things like that. I mean, basically what they're trying to do, all these techniques, whether they're ancient techniques brought forward with new names or kind of pseudo-modern techniques or whatever, I mean, basically all of these things are used just to get new ideas implanted into the subconscious. And so, I mean, that's the whole goal. A lot of the ritual techniques are to, put these, seedlings of new thoughts and different programs into the subconscious. It's the most difficult thing to do because it's so well protected, right? So,
what do you mean by that? Like that, why is it so well protected? And what is that?
Because the conscious mind doesn't want you to change, doesn't want you to upset the apple cart. It likes life the way it is. Even if life is tough, it's known, right? It's familiar. And so that's safe, really. I mean, it's, remember that its job is to keep you intact, right? It's to protect you, to keep you in the right place and to keep you alive as long as possible. So, anytime you go into the unfamiliar, the first thing we're doing is threat assessment, right? I mean, we're hardwired to do that. I mean, we've been hardwired to do that since we've been on 2 feet and probably when we were hanging in the trees, so it's followed us through. We're literally hardwired for threat assessment first, right? So, so the conscious mind is hardwired for that too. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? And so anything that threatens the status quo is first seen as something that's potentially dangerous for us. So, anything that's dark, unknown, unusual, different, and unfamiliar, right? It's not family, it's unfamiliar. Right. So it's something that we don't know. It's the unknown. That's why the unknown is so terrifying for us. It spikes into the red level of our threat assessment on a regular basis. Right. So the conscious mind is going like, whoa. I don't need you wandering around in your subconscious, planting these seedlings of new ideas and new thoughts and all of this stuff, and trying to rearrange things in there. You're gonna really mess us up out here, because that stuff's gonna grow and start pushing against the status quo, and it's gonna make you grow, right? It's not thinking about it as make you grow. It's thinking about it as you're gonna take new risks that have the potential to really mess you up. So it really, you think the blood-brain barrier is hard? You have no idea how vicious the conscious mind will keep new ideas out of your subconscious or keep you from tampering with your subconscious. So, but one of the loopholes there is becoming conscious in your dreams, right? Because now you're in your subconscious. You're in there every night anyway when you're dreaming normally. It's just that you don't have the wherewithal to do anything, right? To make changes, because it's all fragmented, right? And you're fragmented in there. You don't realize that you're in there. You don't realize that you're dreaming when you're dreaming. You just are acting out this crazy play, right? And that's it. And so confusion just breeds more confusion, and that's it. It's an endless loop. So once you become conscious in your dream, you're in the manufacturing, you're in the factory, right, that produces everything. I mean, you can give orders and clean things up, clean up corners of that territory, make it more organized, get the lay of the land, make the unfamiliar familiar, right? Make what's not family, family, and so make what's unknown and dangerous something that can work for you. You make it known, right? And so it's infinite. So the expanse can keep going. And so, but as we start to do that, of course, we're going to find rough spots. So, what do? We ask the right questions. Hopefully, asking the right questions is way more complicated than answering them. right? It's like asking really good questions is tough work. It takes a long time to figure that out. So, but in asking the right questions, you're going to dredge things up, right? Because it's your subconscious. You bring it to light, boom, it's there. So when you ask questions like what's the next thing I can do to maximize my moving forward with this problem in my life, or something I want to get taken care of, it's going to bring up something probably not very nice. And so potentially, right? So it's going to bring up problems, right? Like you're going to be faced with, the aspect, you in the aspect of, your most undisciplined friend, that's saying like, oh, you don't need to do that, come on, I don't want to do that. Just, let's have a beer, let's watch some TV, let's do this, let's do that, let's just wander around, let's go on vacation, tell me a story, like, whatever. It'll have every excuse and you just, it can be very frustrating, right? So you're going to have to convince that aspect that it's in its best interest to get down and start getting to work, right? And start, becoming more disciplined. Or maybe you're going to have to negotiate with it, for a while, or maybe you're going to have to, take matters into your own hands. So this is, the type of thing that we work through in a lucid dream on a personal level to move us forward, to create the life that we want here in this physical environment, right? So, and, the more that you do it, the more familiar you get with it, right? But also, the deeper the things are being dredged up. So it's like, first you get the superficial stuff that's there, right? But when you start asking some of those deeper questions, you start dredging up chaotic aspects that are, really well entrenched. And so, it's, you're going to have your wits about you and figure out how to maneuver them into something that's controlled, and you can broker that power and bring it forward into your life here, right? As you do that, because once you put it under your conscious control, right? It's not just binding it. You actually want to, bring it under control. And so you can utilize that energy and push it forward into your life and the different aspects of your life. So, I mean, it's a huge piece of work. I mean, in some ways, I think a lot of times, for me, I think that that's like the epitome of, mental or spiritual alchemy that some of these guys talk about. They do it from this side, right? So, spiritual alchemy as opposed to laboratory alchemy or physical alchemy, right? So it's like transforming yourself into something better. And they go through a lot of these, they could spend, if they learned the lucid dream, they could spend a quarter of the time that they do in those practices and get 100 times the results, in a very, very short period of time. Because they wouldn't, there's always the resistance of the physical, right? When you're dealing with mental things.
Mostly when people are doing those spiritual alchemy exercises, they're basically like you were saying, shamanic journey type meditations, right? Where you're using symbolism to interact with and integrate different parts of yourself.
Exactly. But again, you're going through that filter, the very heavy resistance filter of the physical body being still, sensing and being engaged in the physical reality, right? So, if you were to basically take this thing offline and just, work only in the mental strata, then, when you reintegrated them, you'd be way ahead of the game. So, and the one thing they're not likely, at least the ones that I've met, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, the guys that engage in that or the girls that engage in that are, they don't pay much attention to the physical body. And it's kind of that's a detriment to them. Because no matter what you do, mentally and spiritually, I mean, that's only going to generate more energy for you. And so, but if the physical body can't handle that energy load, it's like putting in 5 times the size of the breaker that you would, normally have in something, right? So if it takes a 30-watt breaker and you're putting in a 120-watt breaker, then by the time that breaker would have enough energy in it, it's going to trip it. It's going to blow your hair dryer, that you've got plugged into the wall up there, because it can't handle that kind of load, right? That's why those breakers are so much lower, right? You don't want it to short out everything downstream of that. And so people don't think about that when we do this work with the physical body. The physical body has to be trained and flexed and prepared for that extra surge of energy, because every time you do something in the subconscious and you utilize that energy that's been released, I mean, your body's going to get a huge surge of energy, right? So that's going to be something that's going to be less resistant in going through you. But if your physical body isn't ready for that, it can really do a lot of damage. So it's one of the, I think that's one of the reasons that there are so many, like in the old world, like a lot of these people are really in good physical condition that are doing this work. I mean, they're yogis, or they've got some physical practice where they're in, excellent condition, to be able to withstand some of that energy going through them, because it can be pretty jolting, really. So until you have it in the flow.
Brian, this is Wendy. I've got a really quick question about this.
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me. Sometimes after I'm done working on a client, and I go to sleep, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I feel like everything has been electrified. And I don't know if that is like a discharge of electrical of like all the energy that I've collected, or if it's just a resettling of all the energies that I've been working with. It's not unpleasant, but it's like I feel like I'm being charged completely. It doesn't like go in waves. It's like my entire body is electrified, and then I feel like and then it slowly dissipates, and then it'll come again and boost up, and then it subsides, and then it'll boost up again and then subsides, and it does this like 3 or 4 times, and then finally it's done.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a number of things. I mean, one is it always happens at night when you're sleeping.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it could just be that it's trying to push you into a lucid state, or into a dream state. And the other thing is that it also means that when you're the most relaxed, your channels are open, and any energy that you sort of gathered through that experience, it's then able to sort of push through at that place, and it'll wake you up, obviously. So it's not an uncommon situation, and so one way to not have that would be to do a short burning after you're done with those clients, like at the end of the day. I mean, that's usually what I do. I'll do like a 20-minute burn at the end of the day, just to kind of clear any residual stuff that might clog me up, or kind of get a surge at different times of the evening or whatever when I don't need it. So and then obviously I think that's again one of those reasons why a yoga practice, qigong, tai chi, anything that moves the energy and moves the body in a coordinated fashion will allow those channels to stay open and allow that energy to free flow through you. Because really, when we get those surges, either it's a level of energy that we've not encountered before, or it's a partial impedance of the channels, so that when you do relax, when those channels open again, then you're getting this sort of rush that goes through you. So
it's not unpleasant. I mean, it's actually
I wouldn't think that it would be, but I mean, as long as you have a physical practice going, then I would probably, I would think it would be okay. If you didn't have a physical practice, then I'd be saying, you know, you either have to do the burning afterwards, or you really need to step up your physical practice in order to get that, those channels open on a regular basis, so that you can, you know, not have that sort of building up inside of you and then releasing when you least expect it.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Cool. I think we covered everything that you were getting through with the defragging of your subconscious, and I'm really glad that you brought up that point about how every technique, whether it's something new like NLP or new thought or magical practice or whatever, are all about getting ideas into the subconscious and changing things on that level, and why that's challenging, and why, you know, we're putting so much value on lucid dreaming as the primary method to do that. Because like, as we're going through all of this, and as I'm, you know, restructuring the way that I think about it, having these conversations and taking notes and all that, it's like, it's just coming together and making so much sense that it's of such high value to do any and all of this work. And so I hope that as we move forward and have the calls and structure all the videos for the programs, that everybody is like getting all of that as well, because it's, you know, not only does it like just put things in perspective and make sense, but also it's very inspiring for the work, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's like, I know it's hard right now, that it's like, it's a lot of work, you know, it's new routines, and, you know, it's like, oh, we've got to, you know, say these things and then check reality checks and look for dream signs. And, oh, now we've got perspective memory, and we're doing these, you know, meditations and all this stuff, but we're not lucid dreaming yet. And it's like, you know, again, the foundational stuff is so important, because, you know, the last thing you want, it would be more frustrating for you to think, you know, you get to a certain stage and then you don't have a critical piece that you should have had way back when. And then you got to go back and retrain all that stuff again. And so it's difficult in that. I think that's more difficult. So I want to make sure that you have all the things that you need going forward, so that the foundation is really solid. And I think that was, you know, that was a huge part for me. And I think that's why I have a lot of freedom now, is because of that. I've never had to go backwards to redo things. And, you know, I give all the credit to my teachers for forcing me to do that, because I didn't have an option, right? It wasn't like there was a bunch of other lucid dreaming schools or programs out there or anything like that. I mean, there were a couple of books, you know. I think when I started this, LaBerge was just in grad school. So, you know, it's like, it was the same kind of thing. There wasn't a lot out there on this, other than, you know, some kind of fluffy stuff. So, but definitely nobody training it. So I didn't really have a lot of options. If I wanted to do it and wanted to know more about it, I had to stick with the program, you know. And and there was no democracy. It was just like, you do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, you know. And so, and until you can get to this stage, then don't ask me any questions about this or that or the other thing. So there was none of that entertaining value to it. So I just had a strong desire to do it. So I stuck with it. And, but now I see the value of it. So I want to make sure that, that I do that same thing for you guys. And, you know, I'm obviously a little more free with giving out information and, you know, future pacing and all this other stuff, because that's the way we learn here. You know, it's like, we need the context and see where we're going to be inspired to get there. And but at the same time, knowing that, you know, rushing ahead doesn't do you any favors. I mean, yep, you might have a couple of exciting adventures or whatever, but then it's going to be really frustrating for you if you don't have those other things in place to be able to consistently get back there again and again and again. It's always been my, you know, sort of battle cry is, you know, it's nice when you have, you know, an experience. It's nice when you can when you do the right things and you trip into something, but it's really 10 times more frustrating when you can't repeat it. It's like it becomes a fluke in that case, and you don't want to think that your practice or your life is a fluke. It's like you can't hang a shingle on that, right? It's like it's got to be super solid, and it's the foundational stuff that will keep you in that place so that you can repeat your experiences over and over and over again. I think that that's the real solid part of this program, and and the solid part of any training. It's like you need to be able to reproduce things, because when you can do that, that consistency builds up over, it gives you the tools to be able to get in there and do a lot more work than most people would be able to do. It's that consistency, it's building up that consistency that will do that, and gives you the confidence to go farther, to trek into that unknown in greater and greater forays, and explore it's you, right? I mean, it's not, we think of it as it is unfamiliar because it's territory that hasn't been marked by you. It's not known consciously by you, but you're experiencing it every day because it's all playing out. And so when we finally get in there and look at it, face to face, it's like, it's amazing. You uncover you uncover so much about yourself. It's like you've never really even known yourself. You've just been a program that's been running. And it's like when you finally get to, introduce yourself to you and experience that, it's a great thing. It's like, then, it's like you're in a very balanced position, and you can move in any direction that you want. So, and that's not something a lot of people can say. So it's well worth the effort, I think, in the end. So, yeah.
Nice. Cool. Thanks, man. All right.
Yeah.
If nobody else has any questions, then we'll wrap it up for tonight and end on that note.
All right.
Well,
Cool.
thanks, guys, and thank you, Dustin, for being a guinea pig. I really appreciate and love watching you go through this and squirming. I think that's really good for us.
Yeah, no problem.
It's really good. It's really good for me.
No.
Yeah, well, it's really important to me that, like, for myself to know that, like, these things that we do, if they're done, they'll produce what we're talking about. And because I know that
exactly,
Brian's training was like very rigorous, and he's been doing it for a long time. So it's hard for everybody, I think, to compare ourselves to him. He's been doing it for 40 years, and oh wow, he can do all this stuff. And it's like, well, okay, well, what does it take to do that? And so I think, yeah, I've been doing this stuff for a little while too, but I haven't, but I still feel like I've never gotten this ability online to any substantial degree. So it's been completely haphazard. It's not, and so, I know that if I can do it with the techniques that we're presenting, then truly, I think everybody can. So, so I'm enjoying it. I'm glad to do it. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the struggle.
The struggle is real.
The struggle is real. That's right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on Wednesday night.
Thanks for the good questions, and sorry about Sunday, and we'll try to keep that at a minimum.
Life happens.
Yeah, life happens. It's true. It's true. Just like Jurassic Park. So,
Okay.
Oh,
Good night.
Oh,
thanks,
yeah.
guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
No problem.
All right. Thank you.
thank you.
See you guys later.